What's up, Instagram? Doing a late night live because I just had a lot of stuff I want to talk about. But first and foremost, I just want to say happy Juneteenth to everybody who is celebrating Juneteenth and is super upset that I think it's stupid. Happy Juneteenth. Amazing. Woo, feels good. Racism's gone now, right? You got your Juneteenth. I'm so happy that we can celebrate Juneteenth. I mean, the Democrats have taken everything, but at least they've passed Juneteenth. I mean, everybody in the entire history of the world has been a slave, but only one group of those people needs a holiday as a consolation prize from Democrats at the same time that there's, I don't know, anything they could solve. Shootings are up 94%, homicides, this city, that city, but at least they gave you Juneteenth. More power to all of you. I'll be celebrating the 4th of July, but I don't know, maybe next year we can do another baseless holiday and keep saying that we're just getting more power in this country because our kids are getting dumber. Our neighborhoods are burning down. I mean, it's just like, I'm getting tired of the stupidity. Like, it's just like, I don't even care. Like, I've been trending for the last 2 days and I don't even care anymore. Like, there used to be like an excitement about the fight for trying to wake people up. And now it's getting like, all right, man, cool. Go celebrate Juneteenth, man. Go have a barbecue, cookout, celebrate Juneteenth. Have a good time celebrating your Juneteenth and be, you know what you should do on Juneteenth? You should talk about Candace. You should talk about how upset you are that Candace doesn't understand how cool Juneteenth is. Okay? We're done with the Juneteenth discussion. I really just don't care about it. It's dumb. Enjoy your stupid holiday. Now, what I want to talk to you guys about was because a lot of people messaged me yesterday, and this is for intelligent people. So if you just jumped on here because you want to be passionate about Juneteenth, you might want to get off because now we're going to talk about foreign policy, and you can go on to somebody else's live that's talking about how important your holiday is. We're going to talk about China because I did a live yesterday on Facebook, and people were asking me to do it on Instagram. This week on my show, we talked about China, me and Jack Posobiec, who is a wonderfully intelligent human being who has been covering extensively Antifa, and T and I both are very interested in China because it is just one of those things that most Americans aren't realizing is that we're running out of time in terms of saving this country. And people don't understand that we right now have China, which has developed, for those of you that don't know and aren't learning in school, because while you're busy learning about Juneteenth and critical race theory and all this other nonsense, what you're not learning about are the things that are going to impact future generations, which is the fact that this country is going to be radically different, and that China has actually put into place a 100-year plan. Their goal was by 2049 to celebrate Mao, the centennial celebration of Mao, and all of his ambitions was to take over the world. You should look up the Belt and Road Initiative if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about. They've always had ambitions to globalize and to have the world look to China for answers. And at every layer right now in what is going on in America, you should, if you do not have the wool pull over your eyes, see China. Everything in terms of why China right now has literal concentration camps. And they are enslaving Muslims in their country. At the very same time, their foreign ministers are coming on American soil and they're talking about racism and they're issuing statements about American racism. Well, obviously, they're seeking to crush America from the inside out, and they realize that if they just keep talking about race, all of the countries have realized that America is obsessed with race, and the kids can learn absolutely nothing. But if they just keep focused on being angry and focusing on Black Lives Matter, and they keep funding these race-obsessed movements, they can distract Americans and get Americans to not see what China is doing. So a couple of things that I want you guys to look up. It's probably the most important discussion that we need to be having in this country about in terms of China's global ambitions. First and foremost, the Spratly Islands. The South China Sea controls about 1/3 of all of the world's trade, right? The South China Sea is supposed to belong not to China, but China recently just said, we claim the South China Sea, and they began actually just building a military island, a man-made military island in the middle of the sea. And they have been posturing against all of the other Asian countries in the region, basically staking claim to it. The reason they want to stake claim to it isn't because they just like the South China Sea, is because they realize that they can control the trade routes on that sea. They become a threat to the entire world. So if you're wondering about a lot of the events that are going on in America and why it seems bizarre that suddenly after Trump won, people began being obsessed with Russia, like out of nowhere, Russia collusion and Russian bots and Russia. And definitely came out of nowhere. Obama was in office all these years. No one was talking about Russia in this manner. The answer is obvious. In terms of China wanting to take over the world, China could not take over the world unless it deals with its next door neighbors, right? Russia and India being those next door neighbors they need to deal with. India has an incredibly large population. You might have recently realized that India has been standing up against big tech and trying to get them out of there. And they've been talking about Greta Thunberg trying to create all of these riots in India. The people that are going to be behind that and the funding behind those movements to destabilize India, which is a largely conservative country, is China. If you look at Russia, if you look at just the map, Russia is China's next door neighbor and it's a nuclear power. So if China wants to take over the world, they need to make sure that there is no communication between America and Russia and that no deals are done between those two countries. What they want to do is they want to make sure that they fundamentally weaken America, take America off of the world stage as the world's power. And the best guard against that is a reverse Henry Kissinger strategy. And that strategy is to make sure that Russia and America never communicate. So obviously, the establishment Democrats have sold us out to China. Everybody knows that, unless you're a person who is just paying attention to nothing but what is actually important, like Juneteenth. You will realize that Democrats refuse to condemn the CCP. They've done everything in their power to protect all theories about the Wuhan lab leak theory. And that is largely because China is controlling everybody with dollars. They have become, increasingly wealthy. They control mainstream Hollywood. Years ago, when I worked in private equity, China came in with a lot of money and started buying out all of the media firms and all of the Hollywood filmmaking companies that were in distressed debt. They were doing the deals, and now they're controlling the media and they're controlling Hollywood. So if you're ever wondering why all of these movements seem to appear overnight and all of a sudden all of these celebrities start tweeting about the movement, it's because those celebrities are being controlled, whether they know it or whether they don't know it. Take LeBron James, for example. LeBron James loves to talk about Black Lives Matter. If you Google Black Lives Matter in China, you will see that there is a connection between China, for whatever reason, being invested into Black Lives Matter movement. Well, the reason for that, and yet LeBron James refuses to speak about the slaves, the Nike, the Nike slave ships that are going on in child slavery I'm talking about, in the factories that are going on in China. He doesn't talk about it. He doesn't talk about the Muslims that are being enslaved. He does not ever speak out against the CCP. This is a man that claims that he is obsessed with justice, obsessed with talking about, crimes against humanity, and yet he will not condemn the crime of him wearing the shoes that are on his feet. It is because the CCP controls our sports industry. The NBA will not speak out against the CCP. The CCP controls Hollywood industry, and it is also why very recently, you may have been wondering, out of nowhere, Asian Lives Matter campaign, out of nowhere, a maniac walks into a massage parlor. He admits that he has a sex addiction and he shoots up the massage parlor. The majority of the people in that massage parlor are Asian. I should say they happen to be Asian. It was never a race-based crime. He didn't say, I want to slaughter Asians. He just had a sex addiction, was at this spa, and killed a bunch of the Asian people, including 2 white people, but nobody talks about that. And this Asian Lives Matter campaign came out of nowhere, and all of a sudden Hollywood was perpetuating the campaign. And you're probably thinking, where is this coming from? Like, why all of a sudden is Hollywood Asian Lives Matter? Asian people seem chill. They don't seem to be having any issues. And this campaign was so aggressive and seemed to happen overnight. Well, the obvious answer to that campaign, and you can quote me because this will age well, is that China is trying to make it so that speaking out against Chinese people will be considered a crime. Very quickly, the House passed measures, to make sure that Asian Lives Matter was taken seriously. These are early actions that are going to make it eventually a crime to speak out against Chinese people. Eventually, it will be considered a form of racism if you say anything condemning China or condemning a Chinese person. So we're already seeing the early seeds of that movement. Now, in terms of why Trump was so attacked, if you've studied foreign policy and you realize that China is increasingly gaining power, they're increasingly gaining control, the reason that Trump was so attacked is because he understood the threat of China. He was constantly talking about China, and he was bringing that to the forefront in a way that most people hadn't considered before. The fact that they control all of our jobs, right? All of our jobs are being sent overseas. We couldn't get any products in America, and everything that you virtually touch in our country is made in China. That's a threat to our autonomy as a nation. Like that is a threat to America, our sovereignty, when we can't create our own products. So Trump started trying to reverse that. He started the tariff war with China because he understood that we were basically letting them trade for free. And as he starts talking about this, they start super hyper focusing on race because they knew, they at least suspected, I can guarantee you the Chinese government thinks Black Americans are the dumbest people. They think this is the easiest way to weaken America. They are appealing to what they believe to be the dumbest people in America, and they're stroking racial tension. That seems to be the general consensus of all of our enemies overseas. They think Black Americans are the dumbest, including domestically. Democrats. Black Americans are the dumbest, are the easiest to emotionally manipulate. They're the easiest to rile up over any cause. Let's keep stroking this issue because we know that we can train them, to be the most violent, to be the most outspoken, to go out and to fall on the sword. The biggest example of that being the George Floyd protests and riots. They made no sense. More Black Americans died during the protests and the riots. People were killed. Black American neighborhoods burned to the ground, and yet Black Americans still wear a Black Lives Matter George Floyd t-shirt tomorrow because there's a bigger cause that we should be getting behind. JuneTeenth. It's just like everyone in the entire world thinks Black Americans are stupid, including the Democrats, including, the majority of Americans that vote Democrat believe that Black Americans are stupid and we're easily manipulated, which is why every time a policy is passed, they say, if you don't pass this policy, it would be racist. If you don't pass, if you don't stand up against or pass this act or pass this measure, then Black Americans are going to suffer. The idea is Black Americans are stupid, so we're supposed to get up and we're supposed to scream and riot and protest on behalf of something that is not going to benefit Black Americans. Obviously, we're just the useful idiots, we're the pawns, and we just do it over and over and over again. Again, I'm getting bored with it. But it's it is what it is. At this point, I just have to just keep going. And if you hate me, you hate me. I don't really care, right? So you have China, who realizes that Black Americans are the easiest to manipulate. You obviously saw in Anchorage, Alaska, their foreign minister said in front of Anthony Blinken, well, you guys have racial issues, and they control the United Nations. All you have to do is look up, who the World Health Organization. You think of the United Nations, they accept billions and billions of dollars from all different countries. The countries that give them the most money are the countries that they support. China is the major backer of all of those. So they've slowly realized that Americans are very easy to control. All you have to do is offer us money. They've offered Democrat politicians money, and they're moving through policies in America that are fundamentally meant to weaken the American structure, to weaken the American way of life, and to cause this sort of cultural Marxism. Another interesting point, and I'm kind of just giving you guys a lot of information because I think it's super important for you to understand just how much of a threat China is, because they are winning right now and they are successful in their efforts to take over the world, in my opinion. And I think we have a very short runway of time to actually be able to stop it. Another way that they're weakening us is by making our culture more effeminate. So consider the fact that America is obsessed with all of this weird stuff. There's 29 genders. Obviously there's not, but people are emotional and stupid, and so here we are, right? We need to make sure that children can pick their gender. We are encouraging children to mutilate their bodies because they're trans. It's fine. They're trying to force through this legislation. Again, who do you think is behind these politicians? They're writing up these laws. It's going to be China, and they're increasingly trying to make men more effeminate, while at the same time they're trying to make women more manly. There's no society that can survive without strong men. China knows that. They know that so much, but at the same time that they're encouraging this effeminate culture in America, at the same time that they're encouraging men to be more feminine, at the same time that they're behind the dollars to promote people like Harry Styles wearing a dress in the cover of Vogue, China, and you can look this up on the BBC, is implementing a program to make their men more manly. Now, why would China be doing that? It's interesting, right? Why would China be investing money to create courses in masculinity with the express effort and purpose of making their men more masculine? Why would you do that? Why, if this is just society and the world is great and everyone's becoming more woke, why is China, at the very same time that we are trying to tell men to be women, they are trying to encourage their men to be like more men? Because they're realizing that this is the way the world is going. America won't be able to survive when we are completely weakened and we have no men, right? That's the idea, is to do things very slowly. They're different than Americans. They will play the long game. That's why they had a 100-year plan to do this. It is why they began taking over our school systems with dollars. They're behind the educational push to dumb down our children. They have children that are able to compute chemistry and algebra and anything in their heads by the time they're 2 years old. Obviously, I'm being hyperbolic, but I mean, I'm sure you've seen these Chinese kids on calculators. They're absurd. While our children are being told that they should major in gender studies, while our children can't pass basic mathematic exams, while our children are completely illiterate, especially Black Americans, obviously being the group that is suffering the most academically because they're being told that they need critical race theory. They need to learn about race and slavery and JuneTeenth. Did I mention JuneTeenth? We need a holiday to celebrate JuneTeenth. That's what our politicians should be doing. Our communities are completely distressed, but hey, let's do JuneTeenth. Candace is a bad person. Let's all go talk about Candace while their children are able to calculate things that the average American child would just be completely lost in a classroom with 5-year-olds that are Chinese. I mean, the average American child, the average American adult, the average 10-year-old in China, okay, is brighter academically than the average college graduate in America. That's just a fact. That's a fact, right? So this entire cultural Marxist push that is happening, China is behind it. And most people, if you actually studied finance, you actually studied foreign policy, if you actually looked up the Spratly Islands and you understood how aggressive they have been in the South China Sea, you would understand that America is very severely being threatened. And this is the reason why so many of us stood behind Donald Trump, who was calling this stuff out and was talking about bringing American jobs home, because we understood that he was talking about saving America. But most people in America are too emotional to be able to understand that. So they just wanted to go with a president that would give them JuneTeenth. Great. Happy JuneTeenth, guys. I hope this holiday is great for everybody who is screaming about it on the internet right now. It's for you. It's good. It's going to be amazing. We're going to be so great when we're all speaking Chinese, because nobody actually had the courage to say that we're being idiots. All of us collectively are being stupid. The Democrats don't ever put forth anything because they want to make our lives better. They have sold us out to China. That is it. The end. Okay? JuneTeenth is going to be the beginning of a very long process of creating even more divisive pieces of legislation, divisive rhetoric. I mean, it boggles my mind that you've had all this time and you still do not understand how you are being manipulated. It's just, honest to God, it drives me crazy. I just want people to be smarter, okay? Nobody in the entire world celebrates the end of slavery, okay? The Africans still have slavery. There is no holidays in Africa celebrating the end and the beginning or the going-ons of the various slavery mechanisms they have going on. I'm not saying that the end of slavery wasn't good. I am saying that you need to recognize that you are being manipulated and you are being controlled and you are being divided in your own country because another country is trying to take you over. That's it. That's my TED Talk. Happy JuneTeenth.
Mr. Shakur, can we get a comment from you at all?
Hell no. Thug life.
No,
Thug life. Thug life. That's my comment.
What's that mean?